Hello and welcome to the Driver Hire podcast. My name's Tony from Driver Hire Croydon and Sutton.
Hello, I'm Gary from Driver Hire in Colchester.
We represent two of Driver Hire Nationwide's network of over 100 offices. We decided to get together to create a series of regular podcasts for people who want to know more about driver hire, but principally to provide hints, tips and tricks to help our drivers be the very best that they can be. Hi Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing very well and I hope you're having a good week.
Yeah, really good week, Gary. Picked up loads of work this week.
Oh good, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, we've got work picking up already, planning in for Christmas and stuff. So yeah, really pleased, really good.
Excellent. What are we going to be talking about this week then, Tony?
Well, this particular episode is all about loading vehicles. So it's all about vehicle weight, all about loading and safety and security of loads.
This is a good one to talk about, Tony, because as we arrive on site, as an agency driver, we don't always know we're getting the right information passed to us. So when we're given a load sheet or a delivery note where to go to, it'll have a set weight on it, and we just take the client's word that is correct. But there are obvious ways to look at that and understand if we are overweight when we turn up on site.
Yeah, it's I suppose it's one of those interesting things that the driver is, of course, responsible for his load, but it could be the case that you've turned up to take the vehicle out and you weren't there when it was loaded. So you're going to have to make some judgments and assessments about that load before you take the vehicle out. So what's the first thing you need to do then?
I mean, we've talked in the past about the daily walk-around check and securing your load. So once I've looked to say my load is secure, I've got to physically see how that vehicle is sitting with the mud guards or mud flaps hanging down, and if it looked particularly heavy. When you look on the load, you can see if it's full of bricks and you've got 10 pallets sitting on a Class 2 vehicle, you've got to be right close to your weight limit anyway. So I'm particularly going to look round it and take a visual look at the vehicle, how it is sitting on the road.
So you're right. I mean, visually straight away, if a vehicle's seriously overloaded, you're right, Gary, you'll see the mud flaps virtually dragging on the ground. But there's a bit of maths we can do as well. So, we don't have to be, Albert Einstein, but what we need to do is to understand what's the gross vehicle weight or the gross train weight. And we can see that from the vehicle weight plate, which is something you do as part of your daily walk-around checks anyway. So somewhere, if you open the passenger door, somewhere visible from standing by the roadside, might be on the inside of the door or down by the seat or something like that, or even behind the passenger seat, you'll see the vehicle weight plate. And that will tell you what the gross vehicle weight is. And if that's an Arctic or it's a wagon and drag, drawbar, then it'll have a gross train weight as well. And if it's a combination of vehicles, so Arctic or drawbar, you'll find the weight plate for the trailer visible from the curbside fixed to the chassis. That will tell you what the maximum capacity for the vehicle is. So it's gross vehicle weight, or maximum permissible weight is the terms used, or maximum authorized mass sometimes is used. And of course, on the weight plate, it will tell you what the weight of the vehicle without a load is. So therefore, you can make a calculation about how much load capacity the vehicle's got. And if on your manifest, you can see you've got 20 boxes that weigh a ton each, for example, that's 20 tons. And then you can work out whether that vehicle can take that weight. So it's not an exact science because, of course, the weight of the driver, the weight of the fuel, the weight of any other equipment being carried, the weight of the pallets that the load's sitting on, all needs to be taken into account. But that will give you a rough idea of how close to limit you are.
No, you're spot on there, Tony. If you take the manifest or the paperwork we talked about and you can do a quick maths calculation, that can help you. But sometimes we know the paperwork's not always correct. So if in doubt, I would speak to the transport manager and double check it, or even if need be, you can go to a local Weighbridge.
Yeah, that's right. So driving to a Weighbridge to check the weight of your vehicle is one of the allowable excuses for driving overloaded. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're starting in London and your delivery point's in Scotland, that you can go to a Weighbridge in Scotland. It's got to be your nearest Weighbridge. Government website will tell you where the nearest Weighbridge is. They're generally, you'll find them at council premises, such as refuse transfer stations, that kind of thing. And you are allowed to drive there to check your weight, and you're allowed to return back to your point of loading to take off excess weight. So that's the one of very few occasions you could be allowed to drive overloaded. But it's really important that you get it checked if there's doubt about it.
That's right. And the operator should be concerned about it, because the operator and the driver both can get fined if it is overloaded.
That's right. And the fines are absolutely substantial, aren't they?
Oh, very much so. I've got a little story from way back before I really cut my teeth in the HGV market. Though I did have my HGV licence, I wasn't involved on that side. I had a little man in a van out delivering a local parcel company, and I had a lovely little pallet on the back there, and I loaded all my parcels on board, and I knew I was overweight. And did my van look like it was overweight? It was hanging down at the back, this little Talbot van, but I thought I'd get away with it. But as I was tootling down the road, and come the blue lights, and a police car pulled me over, took me to the local Weighbridge, and I had a nice little fine to go with it. Not proud of myself, but it was obvious I was overweight, and I thought I'd get away with it, and I couldn't.
Yeah, it's a fair point, because the reason why it matters is, well, there's a few reasons why it matters. So the primary reason is road safety. So if you load a vehicle more than its design weight, that means that things like braking in emergency would be compromised, and the steering of the vehicle could be compromised. So therefore, it's not safe. Also, an overloaded vehicle is putting undue stress on the road and actually wearing out the road surface faster. But the other thing is, if one operator was to put in extra weight on their vehicle against an operator that was obeying the law, then the illegal operator would get an unfair competitive advantage. So that clearly can't be right. So it's for those reasons that it's so important. But the most important for that, for me, for any of that, is if somebody walks out in front of you and you can't stop the lorry in time, that it doesn't bear thinking about. So really, really important that your vehicle is loaded within its legal and its design limits.
No, I agree 100% with that, Tony.
So in addition to the overall weight of the vehicle, the distribution of the load is really important as well, because the other thing you'll find on the weight plate is not just the overall weight limit for that vehicle, but the individual axle weights for that vehicle. And you could have a situation where if too much weight was forward, you could overload the front axle, and I'm talking about, say, a four-wheel rigid Class 2 vehicle here, or 6-wheel. If you had too much weight behind the rear axle, then the rear wheels act a bit like the pivot point of a seesaw. So what's then happening is the weight on the back is lifting weight off the front axle, which means that steering and braking could be compromised, because you wouldn't have enough grip going into a turn, into a roundabout or something like that. So really important that not only do you not exceed the overall weight, that you don't exceed an axle weight, and the way to achieve that is an even distribution of the load across the whole vehicle.
Well, a 7.5 ton vehicle is a really good example of what you're talking about there, Tony. It's so easy to overload the front axle. It's got a 2.5 ton carrying capacity, and you put 3 pallets on there at 750 kilos, and you put 2 against the headboard. Do you think it's the best way of securing it? Yeah, severely overloaded on the front end. You might not be overloaded across the whole deck, but you're overloaded there.
Yeah, that can even happen if you've got a full load across a 7.5 tonner and you take a couple of pallets off the rear without repositioning. Again, that seesaw effect, the weight coming off. If you've ever been on a seesaw with a fat bloke on the other end, when he gets off, you go straight down. That's what's happening. The extra weight is going onto the front axle.
Yeah, and trying to get a forklift driver to move your pallet on the front end to the middle, the central load point, they're not always keen to doing it.
But it's so important though. It's so important, and if you need to ask that question of the lift truck driver, then you need to ask that question. So Gary, thank you. It's been great talking to you again.
And yourself, Tony, another helpful tips for me to remember and help pass on to my guys.
Excellent. Okay, so if you've enjoyed the episode, please do rate, review and subscribe. And we look forward to speaking to you again next time.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Driver Hire podcast, and thank you very much.
And as goodbye from myself, Gary Richards at the Colchester office.
And from me, Tony Goacher from the Croydon and Sutton office. If you'd like to get in touch with us, along with all the other driver hire offices, you can find us at driverhire.co.uk.
Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.